Hello, algebra students. Today we are going to talk about section 2.3.2, which is writing an equation for a line given 2 points. So we've talked about if we have a slope and a point, how we can write an equation for a line. Our goal today is to be able to write an equation for a line given 2 points. So we're going to start with this table right here. And first we're going to find the equation of the line that goes through the points in that table below. So when we write an equation for a line, we need to know the slope, we need to know the start value. So what's the y value when x is 0? And then we can write in our equation. So our first question here is, what is the slope of this line? And then kind of leading it after that, and we can think about it now actually, is doesn't matter which points we use to find the slope of the line. Okay, and it says find the slope with 2 other points to verify your answer. So you could just start by saying, okay, well, what happens from here to here and here to here? You might notice that this table is all over the place. It's not consistently increasing or decreasing by the same amount. It goes down more, it goes up, it goes down. Okay, so it's kind of like they've given us a smattering of points, but we know they fall in a line. So what's happening from 29 to 18 is it's decreasing by 11. That's my change in x. From 97 to 64, what is happening? It's going down by 33. So remember, slope is delta y over delta x. And if I divide my change in y by my change in x, I get 3. Okay, well, will that happen no matter what points I pick, is the question. Okay, so to get from here to here, for example, or here to here, example, or whatever, if you pick another pair, will you get the same answer? So if I think about, well, to get from 8 to 18, what is happening? Okay, I'm going down by 26, so negative 26. What's happening from -6 or from 64 to -14? So if I have -14 and I had started at 64, this is -68. Well, what's happening when I divide those? I'm going to get 3. It doesn't matter what points I use, right? It's going to be the same. So, oh, this isn't -68. Oh my goodness. You guys were probably like, no, it doesn't. It's -78, right? If I do -78 divided by -26, it equals 3. So it does not matter which 2 points we pick. All right, so now it's asking, how can I use a point to find my equation and then find the equation of a line? So this goes back to what we did with the chicken, like we knew a weight on a day and we knew how much it was increasing by, we knew the slope, and we knew a point on that line and how we could substitute in to get our b value. We're going to do the same thing here. So we're going to start with that y equals mx plus b. I know my m is 3. Okay, so I'm going to use that my m is 3 here. And then I want to find my b value. Well, I've got a choice of 5 different points. Okay, it does not matter which point you pick. So I could just say, oh, I'm going to use this first point, and this is my x, and this is my y. Okay, so I could do that. So here I'm going to make my y yellow, actually. Okay, so my y is 97, and my x is 29 times 29. And then plus b. So I have 97 equals 87 plus b. And if I subtract 87 from both sides, I get that b is 10. Okay, so the difference between what we're doing now and what we did last time is I have to first figure out what the slope is, right? The stuff that we were doing last time, the slope was given to you. Now you need to figure out the slope. But then again, like before, once I have the slope and the y-intercept, I'm going to substitute those into y equals mx plus b. So y equals 3x plus 10. All right, D, once you have the slope, does it matter which point you use to find your equation, why or why not? Well, if you think about these are all on the same line, right? So they're all on a line. You got a what, 29, 87, then you got an 18 and a 64, you got a -8 and a 14, or -14, like, maybe over here, you got a 14 and a 52, maybe over here, -20. So they're all falling on a line. would it really matter which of those points I plugged in to get the y-intercept? It makes no difference, okay? So you could have picked, you're like, oh, I like these numbers because they're not so big, and you want to use those. You will get the same y-intercept, okay? Because they all fall on the line with the same y-intercept, so that does not matter. All right, so let's look at this next example. The Line Factory, remember the Line Factory from before, needs a new logo for its pamphlet. After much work, this stylish logo below was proposed. The design department knows the coordinates of the special points in each logo. However, programmers need to have the equations of the lines to program their pamphlet production software. So what we want to do is figure out what the equations are for the 4 line segments that make up this logo. And then also what we want to think about are what are the domain and the range for each of these segments, because these lines don't go up and down forever. We're looking at them on a specific interval. So we're also going to think about that. So it doesn't really matter which one we start with. I think I'm going to start with this one, and I'm going to call this, just so I can refer to it, I'm going to call this segment A, and I'm going to call this segment B, and I'm going to call this segment C, just so I can refer to them a little bit more easily, and then I'll call the last one segment D. So we want to find out the equation of each of these lines, and then I want to find out the intervals for each of them, or the domain and the range. Okay, so for A, the 2 points for line A go from 35, 168 to 123, 168. So I want to find the slope between those 2 points and then the y-intercept, and then I can think about my domain and my range. Now, a couple of things. The first thing we want to find out is the slope. Some of you might remember what the slope of a horizontal line is and say, oh, I know it's 0. Okay, if you forgot that, which is totally fine, when you find a slope, I find a lot of times it's helpful for people to put the points that they're dealing with into a little table. It just helps you to see, okay, this is going up by nothing. What is this going up by? This is going up by, it doesn't even matter, right? So it's whatever, 90, whatever. But when you do 0 over anything, it's going to be 0, right? So my slope is 0. Then I want to figure out my y-intercept. So if I use that y equals mx plus b idea, and I put 0 in for m, and then I pick one of these points, and it does not matter which point I pick. I'm going to pick this first one for my x and my y. And I'm going to have 168 for my y and 35 for my x. 0 times anything is 0, so b equals 168. So the equation for my line is y equals 0x plus 168. Well, 0 times anything is 0. So really my equation for my line is just y equals 168. That will always happen for horizontal lines, that they're going to be y equals whatever number it hits the y-axis at. That's the y-intercept. And now I want to think about my domain and my range. Now my domain are my possible x values. And I can look at my ordered pairs. I know my x values go from 35 through to 123. And we've talked about, for a domain, at this point, we can just write that out. So we could say something from 35 through 123. Well, I'll show you some notation that you've seen before, but I'm fine with this. The range, the y values, no matter what, are always going to be 168. So for the range, in this case, we would just say y equals 168. So that's my equation, that's my domain and range. Okay, so now let's look at line B. So these are my 2 points, my 2 endpoints for line B, or segment B, really. And we're going to go through and we're going to do the same thing. If it's helpful to you to make a table so that you can think about how it's the x is changing, how the y is changing, your delta y over delta x, then do that. If you're like, I don't need to do that, I can look at my points and you could say, okay, how much does it change from here to here? And how much does it change from here to here? Do that also. Okay, so from 35 to 79, it's going up by 44. So it's increasing by 44. And then here it's increasing by 22. So my slope is my delta y over delta x. So it's 22 over 44. It can be confusing because the x is in the top of the table and y is at the bottom of our table, and it makes us want to write 44 over 22. please, remember what the definition of slope is. It's a change in y over the change in x. So be careful about that. So that's 1/2. Okay, so I know my slope. My y-intercept, I'm going to substitute into y equals mx plus b, and I'm going to pick one of these points. And again, it does not matter which of these points you use. So it really doesn't. Like I could say I want to use this point this time. Doesn't matter. So I have 190 equals my slope, which is 1/2 times 79 plus b. So I'm going to figure out what half of 79 is, and I'm going to subtract it, and I'm going to get that b is 150.5. So then my equation is y equals 1/2 x plus 150.5. That's going to be my equation. My domain is going to be all of the x values from, x values start at 35 and end at 79. So all of the x values from 35 through 79, right? So from here to here, 35 to 79. My range are going to be all the y values starting at 168 and ending at 190. So from 168 through 190. Now another way you could write that, here it's the x values, just say it's in between. I could say 35 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 79. Here I could say 168 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 190. If that notation is confusing at this point, that's okay for it to be confusing still. It's really something that will get solidified later on in your math career. It's fine to write it like this. We just want to be thinking about those values at this point. Okay, so for C, I'm going to use the 79, 190 and the 123, 168. Again, if it helps you to make a table, make a table. I really find that it does tend to help people to draw that table. If it doesn't, then don't. Okay, so from 79 to 123, we're increasing by 44. Here we are decreasing by, this is 168, by 22, so negative 22. So my delta y over my delta x is negative 22 over 44, or negative 1/2. Okay, so notice these were opposites, and you can see, okay, they seem to have the same steepness. This one just is increasing, this is decreasing. That's what the difference is between a positive and negative slope. Okay, so my y value, again, it makes no difference. Which one do you like? We can use this one again, the 190 for the y, and then negative 1/2 for the m, and then 79 for the x plus b. Okay, again, I'm going to multiply these together. Now, in this case, I would add because this is going to be negative, and I get that b is 229.5. So my equation is y equals negative 1/2 x plus 229.5. Okay, so that is my equation. And then we want to think about our domain and our range again. And our domain are all the numbers from 79 through 123. So from 79 through 123, or we could write 79 is less than or equal to x, which is less than or equal to 123. Our range is from, this is 190 to 168. Usually we write it from smallest to biggest. So I'm going to write from 168 through 190. So I would have 168 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 190. Okay, and that would be my range. All right, so then for our last one, 35, 168, and 57, 278 are our ordered pairs. So again, if it's helpful, make that table. Now, when you're looking at this and you're like, I'm not sure how much that went up by, you can always take this and subtract that, right? So 35 to 57 might be easy enough to say, oh, that's 22. And for this to say, oh, I went up 110. But you might have been looking at this one saying, I don't know off the top of my head how that's changing. You could just do 123 take away 79 and 168 take away 190. All right, so then my slope is delta y over delta x So that would be 110 divided by 22, which is 5. So we got a whole number here. All right, so then y equals mx plus b. It's the same idea over and over again, right? I find my slope and then I find my b, then I write my equation. So pick a point. Let's say I pick the first one. Again, it makes no difference. And I multiply, put it in y for y, m for m, x for x, plus b. Multiply these together, subtract it over, and get that b is -7. So my equation is y equals 5x minus 7. My domain. Okay, starts at 30. It starts at 35, goes up to 57, right? Domain are all your possible x values. So from here to here. So from 35 through 57. Or I could write 35 is less than or equal to x is less than or equal to 57. Range is from, what do I start with? 168 and I end at 278. So from 168 through 278. Seems like I can't spell the word through here. Right, and then we could write 168 is less than or equal to y, which is less than or equal to 278. Okay, so that process of first finding the slope, then picking a point, any point, doesn't matter which point, substituting those into y equals mx plus b, solving for b, and then using your slope and your y-intercept to write your equation. That's the big idea. That's what we need to get out of this lesson today. All right, take care, algebra students.